Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm David Bird with Reality Reimagined. I'm an award-winning photographer and Photoshop artist that specializes in fantasy composite art. And today is special for two different reasons. First, it's October 1st. My favorite month has begun, and my favorite holiday is fast approaching. I love celebrating Halloween. This is a wonderful time of year. I've been listening to Danny Elfman music all morning long, and it's a great buffer to some of the struggles that we face in our world today. But today is also special because we're beginning a new episode of the Shop Vlog, the first of its kind, where I'm going to edit a guest artist's image, independent of their artistic vision, and transform their image into a final piece of artwork with my artistic process. So in the episode, we're going to take this original image and transform it to this final piece of artwork. Now, this special edition of the Shop Vlog is going to be broken up into two parts. In today, part one, we're going to take the original image and transform it to this middle stage of the artistic process, using retouching techniques of frequency separation, dodging and burning, enhancing the eyes, and a few other little special tips and tricks that are indicative of the theme of the artwork. In part two, we're going to take the middle stage retouched image to the final composite artwork. I'm going to show you the stock images, the layers, and the Photoshop techniques used to combine them to create the final piece. And then we'll have a discussion about my feelings about editing somebody else's artwork, and of course, incorporating your thoughts and feelings as well. Now, before we dive into Photoshop and begin part one, I want to introduce the two artists that are involved in this image. First and foremost, the photographer, my wonderful friend, Brad Campbell. He's a great photographer, a great human being. He has an incredible, unique vision, and I'm so excited to work on his image today. And then, of course, the amazing talent that you see in the image, my wonderful friend, Evie, who is a force to be reckoned with. She's incredibly creative and incredibly talented, and I'm so excited to work on this image. You can visit their artwork by looking at the Instagram accounts at the link below. With that, let's dive into Photoshop and begin the journey of episode 6 of the Shop Vlog, creating a spooky, amazing, terrifying, horrific piece of artwork. I couldn't think of any other adjectives. That's all I got. Go to Photoshop. Go. Well, to get started, let's do the most important thing in any type of creativity in Photoshop when you're editing. At least the most important thing to me, and that is music. Listening to the right music sets a mood, an emotion, and tone, opens doors in my imagination, and lets it fly and create. So since this is a scary, freaking image, and my friend Evie and Brad did a wonderful job in this photo shoot, we need to listen to music that's appropriate to it. Something horrifying, something terrifying, something that chills your soul. Like polka. Country music? K-pop? Nah. Now we're going to listen to my darkness playlist. It's so dramatic. It's dark and scary. It's just filled with movie themes from different movies that scare the pants off of me. Oh, yeah. This one's from Alien Covenant. That was a horrible movie, but the music, whoa, that was good score. All right, so this music is going to be great. It's going to, and I'm already talking louder because I think you can't hear me because I'm wearing earbuds, so I totally apologize. Whatever. We'll have to get over it. So, taking a look at this image, here we go. This is my thought process for all of this. Let me remind you one more time, even though I said it in the intro, that this is not, anything that I say is not a reflection of the photographer, the artist in the image. This is just my thought process of where it seems and where it needs to go. I want to connect with those eyes. I want to see those eyes. Those eyes are creepy and terrifying. Her expression, her emotions, she's emoting, she's connecting with the glass, and it's perfect. So I need to drive the audience's focus to those eyes. But the problem that I see right now is that too much of the image, her face, the left side of her body, her left arm, it's too bright. So we aren't driving focus to the eyes. Now, we can do special effects on the eyes and make them glow and all that other kind of stuff, and that will help pull focus, but we need to build a foundation of design that promotes that. So if the rest of the image has too much brightness in it and then we make the eyes glow, we're competing against the other brightness, and we need to ask the question, does the other brightness everywhere else in the image, does it serve a purpose? Is it need to be there? Now, obviously the main light, the key light is off of camera right. It's cascading in with a little bit of that Rembrandt pattern coming in, but there's clearly a second light here that's bringing some light back into this scene. This isn't, again, not a statement of poor lighting pattern. This is just looking at this and saying, what do we do with this now to drive the focus to those eyes, which is my goal. So that's where I'm going to start. We're in Adobe Camera Raw. This is a 16-bit image. The first thing I always do with any image is come to the optics here and check both of these. Remove chromatic aberrations, use profile corrections. That's going to overcome the convex nature of the lens and the glass inside of the lens and fix all of that. Now, color, luminosity, detail. Those, I talk about this all the time in all the videos on this channel when it comes to Photoshop. That's the foundation, the three principles of Photoshop, where you start. So when we look at this, luminosity, that's where we're going to begin. But I'm not going to start with exposure or anything like that. I'm going to bring the highlights down. Yeah. So look at this. I mean, even as we take the highlights down, yes, the image is getting darker. But think about that from the idea of we're promoting pushing those eyes, especially when we do just a general retouch. It's so loud, but it's such a good piece of music. When we push the retouch to the eyes just themselves and then add some special effects on top of it, look at what we're doing right now as a foundation. We're doing those two effects to the eyes to a foundation where we aren't competing with those highlights anywhere else. This is where we were. This is where we are now. And again, not a reflection of the photographer or anything else. I'm going to stop giving that preface, but I'm pulling these highlights down so that that builds that foundation to help drive us to it. Now, the left side of her chest here, this part of the dress, we're going to have to minimize that even further, but we'll do that with another pass in ACR. I'm going to bring the white point down. Actually, I want to push the white point up just a little bit. And right now I'm just focusing on her face and those eyes. Anywhere else in the dress or her arms where this causes a problem, we can always fix that. I like that. But here's the deal. Before we go any further with the basic corrections, let's call out the elephant, snake, creepy lady in the room as far as I'm concerned. No offense, Brad. I don't like the color yellow. The color yellow is my least favorite color in the entire spectrum. Congratulations. You used it as your main color. God, you know what? Your shop log's over. I hate it. I hate the color yellow. So I'm going to change the color yellow. I'm going to pull it away because it's just driving me wonky. I don't like it. So we're going to come down to the color mixer here. Let's click the actual yellow color. Let's pull the saturation. You know what? No. Ooh. Ooh. I was going to say, oh yeah, I'm digging this. If we push orange, you glad you're not a banana. So as we start to desaturate yellow, this is a good talking point. This is a bit of education, so you better pay attention. Thanks for watching the channel, by the way. So every human being, as I've said many times in the retouching series on the channel, everybody has orange, yellow, and red in their skin tone. Orange more predominantly than red. Orange more predominantly than yellow. If we pull, the music just changed and it's so vastly different. I really wish you could listen to the music. Anyway, so if we take yellow out of this scene, we are left with orange as that predominant color and a little bit of red. So what are we getting right now? Well, it's twofold. One, it's visually interesting as a style because we've got almost like this two-tone going on, but it isn't complementary colors. We aren't doing with like orange and blue. We're just taking the yellow out of the scene, but also we're getting a little bit of that alabaster feeling into the scene. As far as the skin is concerned, that alabaster white, that calls back to the mythology of Medusa. Paying attention to those eyes turning into stone, we're starting to see some of that. And I like that feeling. I was going to say, let's just change the hue of yellow more to orange, but by pulling out the saturation, I'm really digging this look. So let's go to the color orange. Let's increase the saturation just a touch. Let's change the hue to start pushing it a little bit more toward the reds instead of the yellows. Because again, I'm biased. I freaking hate yellow. So let's take the luminance of orange up. I'm just kidding about yellow. Like if you run the Yellow Fan Club of America, good for you. I just don't want the newsletter. All right, so I'm going to push the luminance up just a little bit more of orange. Now let's scale it back. The more bright we make it, the more we have to fight to see those eyes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love this image, Brad and Evie. You guys did such a wonderful job in this series, and I didn't have to be there for the photo shoot. They had a real snake. They had real snakes, plural. Snakes on a plane, snakes in the photography studio. They had them. They had them. And I won't tell you the story about how the snake bit somebody's arm off. Well, not the entire arm, but part of it. But like, it was horrifying. I wasn't there, but I get to edit the photo. All right, so we're back to the basics. Let's pull the blacks out. The black point is being adjusted, which is going to make the image a little bit brighter across the scene, but I'm okay with that because I feel like Okay, so look, we definitely have to do something with the neutral space in this image in the background. So whether we just simply add a texture or we go through the process of a composite with like I could see a cobra's head, like the fans of the cobra head behind hers. So that maybe it looks like maybe it's a part of her or something on those lines, or we just do a texture. We could go full on composite and put like, you know, some kind of Grecian ruins or something in the background potentially. But I like the idea of the cobra head. But that'll be part 2 of this shop vlog where we edit for the first time somebody else's image. So the black point, let's take the shadows out. Yeah. So we're getting more of the hair to work with, which is going to be a challenge when we go for the composite, but that's okay. And now I'm reducing the black point again because we're getting some of those nice shadows back into play. This is the darkness that I'm feeling at this level in certain key shadows, but we can't do it right now because, teaching moment here, this is the first time we're processing the file in Adobe Camera Raw. The goal is not to make the picture pretty. We're not doing a full-on edit right now in ACR. We're going to take it into Photoshop. We're preparing the file to go into Photoshop, then to strategically work on the image. I need more coffee. Hold on 1 second. Ooh, Carl Orff, Karina Mubrana. I can't. Oh, wow. And I have more videos to record today. This is going to be a hot mess. All right. We're going to strategically add drama and shadows later in Photoshop. We're just prepping the file for right now. So let's give it a little touch of the texture, little touch of the clarity, and dehaze. Dehaze to me is like contrast 2.0, especially when it comes to color. I like that. Let's go ahead and touch vibrance and saturation. Try to match them. Ooh, I think that saturation pushes too much. Yeah, the more we push the saturation, the more the orange is now overpowering the reduction of the yellow desaturation. So I'm taking the actual saturation back to 0. And just for giggles, I want to go in the other direction for just a second. So here's what I'm feeling. And this is a part of the process, so I'm glad that you're seeing this in the shop vlog today. As I take this away, I love what I'm seeing in her skin. I'm wanting more of that alabaster skin. Obviously, this is desaturating the hair and her tattoos and the sword and her eyes. I don't want that, but I'm building a battle plan in my head right now. I know that I'm favoring this view of parts of this image more than I'm favoring this view. But the smaller parts of this view of saturation of the hair and the eyes, I definitely want those to come into play. So I'm going to err on the side of leaving the saturation to 0. And now I'm making a choice for the next step of the ACR process, and that is to open this image as a smart object in Photoshop. Because when I do, it's not going to make any actual changes to the file and to its pixels. So the fidelity of the pixels is going to stay pretty strong. But then I can duplicate the smart object in Photoshop, reopen it back into Camera Raw, desaturate some elements and so forth, bring that back into Photoshop, use a layer mask, and combine the two. Observe. So I think all this looks good. I'm going to hold the shift key, and that changes the open here button from open when I hold it to open object, which means it's automatic. Oh, I got trigger happy. I'm so excited. Okay, we'd have to close it and go back. Opening as a smart object is not that big of a deal because, I mean, yes, it's going to process the pixels and fidelity. Here's your hypocritical teacher that's like, make sure to protect the fidelity of those pixels. And then I hit open. I'm like, oh, well, screw it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Control or Command and letter J to duplicate the layer. And then I'm going to hit Control Shift and A or Command Shift and A on a Mac to take it back into ACR. Really, it's not that big of a deal, but I was just trying to look impressive. Impressive. Most impressive. Darth Vader. I feel like I'm Michael Scott. This shot vlog is me being Michael Scott. And the reason why is because I'm scared because she creeps me out. All right, so let's take the overall saturation down. Let's take the specific saturation of orange down. I'm looking at just her skin on her face. And then let's go ahead and take the luminance up just a touch to get that alabaster skin coming into play. Change the hue ever so slightly. Pull that saturation down just a touch more. And then let's go to the yellow and push the luminance of yellow up, is really making this section of the skin blow out just a little bit more with light. See that? And I'm liking that because I like that stylized feeling. And we'll probably have to do this again because I like what it's doing in the hair. No, we're going to do that part in the hair. These little highlights in the hair, which I think looks pretty slick. We're going to do that with dodging and burning. So don't let me forget. Okay, thanks. So I'm going to take the luminance up just a little bit more of the yellow and then hit OK. Now I'm going to put a black mask or hide all mask onto that. And I simply did that by holding the Alter Option key and clicking the layer mask icon here in the layer window itself. Now we're going to paint white at 100% flow anywhere on that alabaster skin. Yeah, I like this. Now, because we're going to get close to her hair, we're going to have to be pretty careful how far and where we go with this. And obviously this is because of the lack of color as we work, this can confuse your eyes. You can sometimes, because this happens to me, sometimes I will do this and I'm like, oh no, that was the wrong idea. I shouldn't have done that. And then I'll just say, no, that's a bias. That's a bias in your eyes because you're seeing a drastic change right now. Go the distance, paint it away. And if you feel like she looks like a freaking scary ass mime, then reduce the opacity of this layer to bring back some of those yellows into the scene. But let's go ahead and get it in there first and just see how it comes into play. And now I'm not being as careful as I paint because I know that I'm going to go ahead and reduce the opacity of this layer because I'm just, this is a good idea because it was mine. Just kidding. No, I'm not. But I can't let it go this far because then it just, I just don't like the way it looks. Okay, so it's my shop vlog. I can do what I want. But I want to go the distance just in case because you may find as you get like 95% of this painted in that you're like, wait, no, I actually do dig this. I'm not saying that's happening, but I'm not going to not say that it isn't going to happen as we paint away the yellow everywhere else. And let's go ahead and talk about this because no, that's just a hot mess. So we definitely have to reduce the opacity. There we go. We're at 50-ish%. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that. Well, I'm going to pull it down just a touch more. There we go. Yeah, I'm digging that. I like that. And let's go ahead and talk about this really quickly. We are obviously making some drastic changes to the original image because Brad chose to use a yellow gel, and specifically not just because of the yellow gel, he chose to use a gel period, which means that most of this image should be illuminated by that color, and I'm purposely removing it and taking it away. Yes, I am altering the base image to a degree, but keep in mind we would not have this kind of cascade of colors, this shadow pattern, this overall influence and idea for this art piece had he not photographed with that yellow strobe. Because the yellow is affecting the hair, the eyes, the other parts of the skin in a way that is enabling us to do this. If he had not put that yellow gel in front of the light, we would not have this opportunity. So I like what I see, and my vision is to take it further in this new direction away from fully utilizing the gel itself, simply because I don't like yellow. What do you want from me? I'm a creative artist. There are things I like, there are things I don't like this song. I like this song. All right, so we've desaturated it. I'm going to pull the opacity down just a little bit more. Let's go back and forth. It's just a little less intense in the face, which I'm okay with. And for giggles, I'm going to change my flow, my brush to 10%, switch my foreground color back to black, and start painting black onto this mask, which is going to start hiding the effect. And I'm just doing it on the arms just a little bit because I want those arms to come back into play with some intensity. Just a little bit, maybe just a little bit of the dress. So I'm essentially undoing what I did with this layer mask by 10% flow, only on the arms because I'm liking what I see there. Okay. I think this is a good base. Let's start the retouch. So what I'm going to do is run the retouch 3.0 action that's going to populate all the layers for frequency separation, dodging and burning, and the layers that I would use to enhance the eyes. Now, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Thanks for being here. But if you have not seen the retouching series here on the channel, make sure to look at the card above. It will take you to that. And specifically, hopefully, it will take you to the video that has the retouch 3.0 action available to you for free. The link is in the description in that video to the Google Drive where you can download it, and that video shows you how to actually use the layer itself. Part of the shop vlog today, I'm going to speed up the process of retouching the skin and so forth. Once we get to the end of it, I'll give you a brief recap of what I did. But let's populate those layers real fast. And then I'm going to do the process of cleaning up the skin, doing some color corrections, dodging and burning and so forth, and we'll do that final take back and look at it and assess everything that was done once we're finished, because that easily sometimes can take anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, depending upon how complex I want to go with the dodging and burning and the retouching. It's even a black and white. This is creepy. You guys did such a good job. Well done. I really think you did a wonderful job. So I'm going to start the process of retouching. We'll be right back once I have went through all of that, and we'll do a recap and see what I have created. She just looks so creepy. So scary and creepy. I don't like snakes, but I mean, who likes that? Who likes that? Well, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. So we are finished with the Retouch 3.0 process, and boy, did I do more than I thought I was going to do with this. I thought I would just do some like frequency separation, cleaning up the skin and all that kind of stuff. I knew the dodge and burn would be pretty heavy-handed, but not to this point, nor did I know that I was going to make these changes. I was just inspired as I continued to go, because I asked myself the question, what more can I do to this to continue to add to the story? I don't want to overwhelm the piece with something that I've done that's artificial, that would pull focus and take away from the impact and story. But what can I subtly continue to add into this to tell a little bit more of the story and to accentuate it? So let's take a look at what I've done by looking at the before and after. So here's the original image before any retouch. Here we are now, before and after. So let's look at some of the major things that I've done. First and foremost, there was a shadow here on the right side of her cheek. It's because the light's coming in from camera right. It hit this piece of hair and created that shadow. That was a distraction to me, so I ultimately wanted to paint that away. That's actually a simple process to do with frequency separation. That's not arrogance and boasting. It's just practice and believing it can be done. So all I did was use these blank layers here to paint in actual skin color that we saw. These blank layers in the layer stack are below the detail layer here. So I painted in the colors and I let them flow as the natural transition of skin color would, with the highlight up top and then reaching the shadows as we got to the bottom of the jawline. Now, where the shadow was, there isn't a lot of skin texture there, because any part of the human body that's in shadow, you're not going to see as prevalent of skin texture as you do in places where there is full illumination. Simple fix. All I did was borrow skin texture from other parts of her face that was fully illuminated and just copied it down into that area very softly, and then allowed it to just build up so it was realistic. Then the next thing I wanted to do was, let's look at the original lip color. So her lipstick color matches more of her hair and so forth in the dress. There's a lot of peaches and beige and so forth. I changed that because I wanted more of that impact. I wanted to see some anchored red into this, because to me, red is an angry color. It's a powerful color, especially when we're looking at those teeth and so forth. I wanted that pop of red. And when I painted that in using a solid color adjustment layer here to the scene, it's on a blending mode of darken. So it's using this color to darken the scene itself. And then I decided to add a hue saturation adjustment layer to the lips, and I just brought the color, shifting the hue just a little bit more, and I added a levels adjustment layer and a brightness and contrast adjustment layer to make them darker, the lips to be darker and have more contrast into the scene. And when I did that, of course, I went, okay, if I've went this far with the lips, I've got to change the whites of her eyes to be red as well. I didn't want the whites to stand out against the contact lenses that she's wearing, so I went ahead and changed the whites of her eyes with the same kind of process of the solid color adjustment layer and then blending it in with darken. I used the eye layers at the top to simply, I didn't even pay attention to the whites layer here. I just went ahead and used this curves adjustment layer, which brought out the luminosity in the iris of those contacts and made them stand out. I got rid of any of the specular highlights that we could see in the center of the iris from the lights themselves, so that we would have that pure black little slit inside of the iris, and then we would have the other colors of those contact lenses. The snake skin texture, that was the final step. that I did, and we're looking at it right now. Of course, there's a lot of dodge and burning. We'll take a look at that here in just a second. But the snake skin texture was one that, as I was looking at it, I need something subtle to work into this. So I went and grabbed one of the pieces of stock that I have of snake skin texture. Now, this was purchased from a company called Composite Photos that no longer exists. They were bought out and absorbed by Adobe stock, so I don't know if you can find this actual piece of snake skin texture. But I like this piece because it's black, white, and gray. There isn't any color into it, but it's got really pronounced highlights of all of the scales of snake skin. So when I brought it into the scene, let's go to the folder group here. As you can see, there are multiple layers of it. Why? Because I don't want to just bring this piece of stock flat into the scene, drop it on her face, and call it good. Because all of those pieces of texture flow up and down in one direction, and that's it. I need to call attention to the actual contour and flow of her face. I need the scales to move and flow from the upper right down to the bottom left on this side of her face, and the reverse of it over here. I need them to feel different, of a different size, a different movement on her nose, on her forehead, on her neck, on her shoulders, even on her hands. I want them to be a little bit of a different flow, a different size, and so forth. Those variations give it a sense of believability. So each one of the one stock image of snake texture was brought in and duplicated multiple times, and every single one of them has had the blending mode changed to color dodge. Color dodge is simply going to use whatever layer you have that you've changed to color dodge. It's going to try to dodge everything beneath it with that layer. And if there's color in the layer, then you get an even more bright, impactful effect. But since this piece of snake skin texture has no color in it, it's just white, black, and gray, then the highlights of the scales stand out the most because it's dodging the scene. It's not going to use the darkness that we see, the blacks and the gray in that snake skin texture to dodge it, because it can't, because it's dark. But it's using the highlights to dodge it, and that's what's calling it out and letting us see it. Now, with this step, I could have went even further with the realism of copying multiple sets of it and really trying to pay attention to the overall flow. Like, I could have copied the scales. Right now they're going in an up and down. I could have rotated them about 45 degrees, 40 degrees to counterclockwise so that they would have flowed this way and wrapped around. That would have taken a lot of time to do, and I'm certainly willing to commit that time. But here's the deal. This is the overall view of it. And keep in mind, the next steps in part 2 of this shop vlog episode, I want to add stuff into the background. So when the audience takes in this piece for the first time, there's going to be things in the background, the coloring, the lights, the special effects, everything. Are they going to look at this piece for the first time and go, oh my gosh, look at that snake skin texture and how he rotated it 40 degrees counterclockwise and made it flow. That's amazing. No, they're not. However, as they continue to stay with the piece, my hope is that they'll go, oh wait, snake skin texture everywhere. That's really cool. And they'll appreciate the minimal amount of steps. It took me about 20 minutes to do that part, to paint all of that in and give it that sense of realism. So the learning point here, the learning lesson, teaching point, talking point, I'm not sure. I don't know. It's time for me to have more coffee. The point to take away from this is efficiency of time. Make sure that if you're going to dedicate time to something like that, of adding that snakeskin texture everywhere, that it's justified and adds to the realism in a way that makes sense for the expenditure of the time that you're putting into it. If this was an extreme close-up piece, like if we were going to have a 16 by 24 of this, just like this, that we see on the screen, then yes, I would have taken that time, because it would be so noticeable at that zoomed in point and framing of this. But I'm keeping the original framing here. I may even reduce her just depending upon what elements we want to put into the background. So I kept that in mind as we worked. Now, the final thing I want to look at is the dodging and burning. Here's the before, here's the after. The dodging and burning is creating a lot of artificial highlight and shadow, a lot of three-dimensionality into the scene. It's giving us those building blocks of that drama that I wanted to see from the lighting. And I do intend on taking this even further in part 2 once she's extracted from this image. I want to add an exposure adjustment layer, levels adjustment layers, and so forth, to really start adding some shadows on this side, preserve the highlights, maybe pop a few of them out on this side so that we can see that sense of drama of the Rembrandt lighting that is coming into play in this scene. So let's have some final thoughts of part 1 of this shop vlog and finish up this video for today. Since this is the first image on the shop vlog that I'm editing that is somebody else's original artwork, there's a lot that's running through my mind, but the thing that I keep landing on is this. I have fundamentally changed this image from its original because it was gel photography. Brad chose to use the gels, he chose to use the color yellow, and to tell that story that way. And I have significantly changed it. Now, I'm looking forward to my conversation with Brad once all of this is complete and get his insight and input, but I'm also interested to know your input. Let me know in the comments below. Aside from the teaching moments and the Photoshop tips and so forth that is indicative of this channel, did you enjoy this process? Is this something you want to see in the future? Is this what you expected with the shop vlog, where I'm going to take somebody else's artwork and take my artistic vision, taking their original artwork and pushing it through a vision of my own? Is that something that's helpful to you? Because again, I want this content to always be helpful to the folks who invest their time on the channel itself. So please let me know that in the comments below. If you like the content of what you found in this video today, make sure to give the video a like and consider subscribing to the channel because new content debuts each week in photography and Photoshop education. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of that new content when you return to the YouTubes. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you out there in the world of Photoshop.